Do you think that you can homeschool for free? Is it really possible? Stick around. Let's talk about it. Hello everyone. If you are new here, my name is Melody. I am the mom of 4 in our blended family of 6. I'm currently in my 10th year of homeschooling, and I don't know if you know this, but the homeschooling community is growing exponentially. So many more people are homeschooling, and I wanted to talk today about budget, really. I'm not going to go in the nitty-gritty of like, this is our budget that we use. If you're trying to homeschool on a really tight budget, can you homeschool for free? Is that possible? If any of this interests you and you want to see a homeschool curriculum, homeschool lifestyle, all that kind of stuff from a secular homeschooling point of view, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and follow along. But for today, before we talk about like the price, let's talk about the concept, right, of free. Can you homeschool for free? First of all, what are we calling homeschool? If what we're talking about is curriculum, if you're saying, can I get all the curriculum and resources that I need for homeschooling free? Then I would give you a hard yes on that. Now, some people would say, well, no, you can't because you need pencils and paper and all that kind of stuff, and that's technically not free. But I'm considering, when I use the word free, I'm equating that with, can I homeschool for the same amount of money that I would spend if my kids were in public school? Because we all know that children aren't free. They're not. So I'm not going to say you can homeschool and you can not spend a penny. Because if you have children, you're going to spend pennies and nickels and dimes and dollars and lots of money all the time. Children are expensive, but they don't have to be too expensive. And you absolutely can homeschool for no more than, and sometimes even less than, what you would spend when you put your child in public school. So if we're just talking about like the extras, the above and beyond items, then personally, I think it is actually totally doable to homeschool for free. Now, how do you do that? Well, first of all, you use your resources. Let's assume you already have the paper and pencils and crayons and things that you're gonna have to buy if they go to public school anyway, or you probably have them if you have kids that aren't in school yet. You probably have art supplies in your house for your little kids. So we're not including that in homeschool supplies. Curriculum. If you have a library, use it. You can get a ton of stuff for free. If you have an internet connection, use it. You can get a ton of stuff online for free for kids of all ages. Now then, some people argue, they'll say, well, but you're paying for the internet connection, so homeschooling isn't really free. But are you really telling me the only reason you have an internet connection is because of homeschool? I mean, really? Because I doubt that very much. Most people, even if they send their kids to public school, have an internet connection. So that's not an added expense that you're adding to your home. It's already there. Next year, I keep telling my husband, I have everything I need. I don't need to spend anything. Next year, I think for the things that I needed for school, I'm spending for my 2 kids less than $100 total. Now, my public school kids, easily spending $100 for the things that they've needed each year. So it's kind of a wash. Part of that is because I have old curriculum that I'm going to reuse, but mostly it's because I've chosen free resources to use for next year. I think, almost none of the stuff I'm using next year is stuff I just already had on hand. Most of it is new stuff that I'm getting online. So it's not like, oh, well, you collected all this stuff. Yeah, I have, but that's mostly I'm not basing my homeschool year on that. And so I have, however, gotten on Amazon and I'm like, ooh, I want this puzzle. Ooh, I want this coloring book. oh, that looks like fun. And so I'll start buying more things just because I want them, because they look interesting to me and they look fun. Do I need them? No. Can I homeschool without them? Absolutely. The fact that I chose to purchase these things does not mean that I couldn't have homeschooled without them. So I could have homeschooled for that less than $100 that I spent on the things that I needed, but also still could have totally lived without if I really wanted to. I think the biggest part of homeschooling, the most expensive part for me, is the food. Now, if you have your kids at home all day long versus if they go to school, it's going to change your grocery budget. Maybe. If you have kids that go to school and you pack their lunches and you have all the food from the store that you pack and you send with them, then no, not really. It's not going to change anything. If you could send your kids to school and they could get free lunches and you're not spending any money on their lunches, then yes, that is going to change how much you're spending on your grocery budget. So it could definitely impact that. But when I think of whether or not you can homeschool for free, I don't usually think about groceries, but that's a sneaky one in there. And it does make a difference because the kids like the food because they're growing and we want them to keep growing. So we keep giving them the food so that everyone can be happy. Anyway, do you ever feel like you just kind of get off on a tangent and you can't get back on track? Because that's pretty much my life in a nutshell. I know some people out there, they're like, absolutely, anyone who says you can homeschool for free is full of baloney. You absolutely can't do it. And typically these people, they go into a budget and they're like, well, think about the utilities because people are using lights in the house, and think about the extra groceries, and think about the paper and the pencils and all these things. But they don't tend to compare those things to the expenses of public school. And that cost difference is super minimal. And the fact that we're at home as opposed to elsewhere does let us cut costs on certain things. For example, if my kids are eating lunch at home versus at school, it's a lot easier to do lunches like from scratch, things that we can make for ourselves, than it is to have that food packed ahead or have pre-packaged food, which is going to be more expensive, although easier if you're working and your kids are in school. Pre-packaged food is super easy to go to, but if you're home, you don't need to do that, so you can save money on your groceries. It's pretty simple, guys. You can homeschool for as much or as little as you want to. You can go buy a $400 language arts program. You could go spend $400 to $500 on every single subject that you want. You could spend thousands of dollars to homeschool if you want to. You can get like the packages that are sent to your house where you have, the science projects and the history curriculum and all that kind of stuff. And it's tempting. It's really tempting. Some of that stuff is really cool. I'm not going to lie. But it's not necessary. You don't need it. If you're on a budget and you're like, man, I feel like I can't homeschool because I can't afford it, I challenge you to take a look and really consider, why do I feel like I can't afford this? Is it because I'm trying to have all these pre-packaged things ready to go? Or could I maybe shift the way I'm looking at things and get stuff from my library and put things together on my own? And I know when I was starting homeschooling 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I was starting to look into things, I had people tell me this and they're like, no, it doesn't have to be expensive. You can just put it together on your own. It's great. It's easy. I was like, hell no, I can't. That is scary. I don't know what to do. I don't know what they need to learn. What if I'm not teaching them the right stuff? What if I miss something? And if you're having that thought, like I had that thought, for the record, I was wrong. There really wasn't anything to worry about. If you're just getting started with your really young kid, reading, writing, and arithmetic. They call them the 3 R's for a reason. They've been a classic over time for a reason. Go with it. Help your kid read, help them learn to write, help them learn how to do math. You don't need resources for that. You can do that you don't need special resources for that, I should say. You can do that with books from the library. You can do that with a piece of paper and a pencil. You can do that with a stick in the mud. You can have it be an outdoor activity where you never sit down at a table and all you have is a little bucket of pebbles and you're working on your math. and you're making letters and you're making numbers and you're counting things. Those early years of homeschooling, your need for curriculum is pretty much non-existent. If you feel like you need it, it's in your head. It's really just in your head. If you want it, I'm not saying you shouldn't have it. Go get it. If you want it and you like it and that's important to you, do it. Sometimes it's fun. I love curriculum. I just don't want you to feel like you can't live without it. I don't want you to feel like your ability to homeschool is dependent on that and then feel like maybe you can't homeschool because of budget, because that would be really, really sad. Hey everyone, I just wanted to add a couple things in here. I was editing my video about how much does it cost to homeschool, can you homeschool for free? And kind of in between the time of filming and editing, I did have a conversation with somebody online and they brought up a couple points that I wanted to add to this. One is extracurricular activities. They're like, well, you're not accounting for extracurricular activities. Now, to me, that's a wash because my public school kids do extracurricular activities too. And so whether my children were in public school or homeschooled doesn't change the fact that I'm going to be spending money on those activities. And when somebody asks me, is homeschooling free? I'm comparing it to public school, which we consider free, but really it's not because we're always spending money on things. The other thing that came up was, it depends on where you live, right? Which this is absolutely true. In my state, my homeschoolers have access to all resources that public schoolers have. So things like extracurricular activities, we can participate in through the school district. So we are not limited to club sports and that kind of thing. So if I don't want to spend a ton of money on club sports or, special interest things, they can still participate in the public school sports, which is a lot less expensive than club sports. And then last but not least, the thing that came up was we had a little bit of a back and forth about, I said you can homeschool essentially for free, with the understanding that some of those things are a wash. And they came back at me with, well, then they feel sorry for my kids because if you don't spend this extra money on homeschooling, then there's no point in homeschooling and your kids should just be in public school anyway. And to me, I'm just like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Like, especially for our really young kids, we can go to the beach for free. We can have play dates for free. My kids can hang out with other kids for free, no matter where you live. Well, I guess if you don't have a beach, we have a beach, but no matter where you live, there are activities that you can do that are free of charge. It's not required for your kids to do paid for activities as homeschoolers, as public schoolers, ever. And I don't think that the quality of your homeschool is determined by how much money you spend. You could spend all the money in the world. You could buy the most expensive curriculum and pay for the most expensive activities and do all that and still be a shit homeschool if you're not having those baseline things like, loving your children and spending time with them. You could have a completely abusive household that spends thousands and thousands of dollars. So the price tag you put on your homeschool does not determine the quality of your homeschool. And please don't let anybody tell you that it does. So you can do it. You can do it for almost free, or free if you're comparing it to your expenses for public school. And you can do it in a million different ways. So hopefully that answered your question. That's my opinion on the subject. If you totally disagree with me and you're like, you are off your rocker, there's no way, homeschooling's really expensive, then tell me about it. Tell me about why do you think that? What makes you say that? Give us some examples of what you mean. And let's talk about it in the comment section. Otherwise, I will catch you next time.